Hearing that, it confirms my suspicion that the Titanic was sunk by JP Morgan and his cronies, and it didn't hit an iceberg. Because you would imagine if it hit an iceberg, people would be more a little bit freaked out, but you could be having a nice evening, dancing, doing whatever. You'd have a bomb explode in the hull and half the people wouldn't even know.
There were a lot of people when the boat started sinking that were still dancing, still eating their steaks, still enjoying themselves because they thought like, oh, this ship cannot sink. The first boat of the Titanic was the boat, I think 7, the number 7 was the first one that left. There were 36 places free on that boat.
Oh, really?
There were a lot of places on that boat still free. People didn't even realize it. People were like, yeah, like there's things going on, but like I'm enjoying my steak here and I look out in the ocean and everything is fine. No matter what really happened there, I think it shows also that people, they like the status quo so much. They think very highly of the status quo. So the thing that is currently big cannot be small, and the thing that is currently small cannot be big. I think the captain actually said before, like, not even God can sink the ship. And so there was this belief of like, how can it even sink? Like, how can it even like go down? The same thing I see now with the fiat currency.
All right. Robin Sawyer.
Hi,
Did I
Eric.
pronounce it right?
Completely wrong.
Completely wrong. All right, help me out. That means half.
No, I think I heard so many different variations. Seyr, Isaiah is usually the correct one, but like Robin is, that's why I'm just like Robin.
Perfect. Well, thank you for making the far trip here to Miami. I'm pretty
It's
excited.
beautiful here. I love the weather. I love the people here.
Yeah. So you have done you did a year and a half stretch where you did one Bitcoin podcast every single day.
Yes.
Tell me about that. First off, why did you decide to start a Bitcoin podcast, and what gave you the idea to do one a day? Because that's a big achievement, really.
This is a long one because like when I first got into Bitcoin in 2020, I fought very hard that Bitcoin is a scam. Very, very strong. I believed in that very vividly. And I know that because I was the stock guy before in my friend group. I didn't have any clue about stocks. Like, don't get me wrong. I was not an expert at all in stocks. I just was the guy that bought Tesla to the right time. And that's why I made like, I don't know, 500, 600% while I was buying it. And people are like, wait, like you're outperforming the stock market, like you're doing so good. Like my like 20-year-old friends were impressed. And so that's why in 2020, when I was around like 22 years old, people were asking me, hey, like, what do you think about Bitcoin? Like, what's your story with Bitcoin? You are in Tesla, you're like in those tech stocks, like you should be also in Bitcoin, I guess. And I was always coming from a Warren Buffett mindset of value investing, like gold has no value, Bitcoin has no value, there's no cash flow, what should I do with that? And so this was already like very hard for me to get into with Bitcoin because like I did not know how to value it. But people ask me about like what Bitcoin actually is. And I basically said for 3 years straight from 2017 to 2020, it's a scam, like don't get into it. But then a friend of mine, not even a Bitcoiner, just like a random dude was curious about how I think about Bitcoin. He asked me like, oh, like what do you think about Bitcoin? I said like, it's a scam because of XYZ. And then he asked like 2-3 more questions. And then I realized, oh, I actually have no clue about Bitcoin.
Do you remember what the questions were?
He asked about like, oh, like why is it a scam? What is kind of your foundation for that? And I had like no real answer for that. I couldn't pronounce it. I just like had a feeling that it is a scam. So like there was nothing really substantial about my opinion there. And so when he asked me that, I was like, okay, I guess I have to research and prove to him why it's a scam. And in that process, I got to know about Bitcoin. This kind of explains like why I got into Bitcoin maybe. And then the podcast was literally started because I was so convinced of this and I had nobody to talk to. I think a lot of Bitcoiners relate there. Like
100%,
there's
man.
nobody you can talked about your Bitcoin thing and like what to do it and like self custody. I was self custody from day one. I was always very passionate about it. Running your own node, and people like I don't even know what Bitcoin is. Like, why should I know what a Bitcoin node is and like what mining is and all of that? Like, what should I do with that? And so I just searched some community, and I was reaching out on Bitcoin Twitter, and then I found a community.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I was running around yelling at like the same 20 people I dealt with in my everyday life about Bitcoin. Friends complaining about, oh, the politics and things are expensive. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you could just please learn about Bitcoin, until the point I had a breaking point. I'm like, I got to start making some videos or something, get on Twitter, get involved, and changed my life, really, speaking out about Bitcoin.
I'm actually curious about that also with you, like, because I think a lot about who are the people that get to be a Bitcoiner. First of all, I think we are extremely lucky that we are the people that were intellectually curious enough to actually research that stuff.
Oh, totally.
And then I think a lot about like what has to happen in someone's life to think about Bitcoin and to get it, because you have to be conservative, but also a risk taker. Because if you're not a risk taker, you're not even looking at Bitcoin in the first place, because in the first place, it looks like a huge risk. Then later you learn it actually is a very conservative, like low risk asset.
Yeah.
But at first you don't know that. So like, you need to be conservative, that you look at risks. And I was thinking like, what in the childhood happened to me, and what is maybe there's also connections to other Bitcoiners. Like what are the brain cells looking like for Bitcoiners to get it early? Now, like, I don't know, 2025, people say like it's still early, but now there's a lot of education out there. I would still say like it is early to a certain extent, but I'm talking about people that got Bitcoin in 2020, in 2015. I mean, people in 2011, those are wired differently.
Yeah, in 2011, you were a libertarian, super technical savvy, you were a cypherpunk, or you're buying drugs on the Silk Road. Like, those are the three categories, at least from my understanding, for the people that got in really early. And for me, I discovered it in 2017, and I was pretty well primed being a commodity producer and a outside-the-box thinker, and I had a lot of mistrust for the world. So when I discovered it, I definitely had this aha moment, but I spent the next few years thinking like, okay, this thing's going to take over the financial world, or the world as we know it is going to change, or it's going to get shut down. But I remember back in those days, it was like kind of hard to find good content on Bitcoin. Now it's like, I struggle too. Sometimes I have to remind myself and think of like what Jeff Booth would say, like, hey, we want to judge these people or get frustrated with people who don't get it, but you have to remember, like, that was you at one point, or it was us at one point. Like, we didn't get it at one point.
There is one trait that I see more and more in Bitcoiners, and I haven't heard a lot of people about talking about that. It's the trait that you want something better for your family, that you want to trade your family up. And I have this really deep in me since very early on. I remember conversations from my dad that said like, hey, I got our family from here to here. Like, now you can take this and take it to the next level. Like, this was something really deep in me, seeing how my dad like founded the company, like he struggled with debt, and then while he founded the company, he had a huge mortgage on the house and already had 2 kids. Then this was the moment where he founded the company with a mortgage and 2 kids, and had a huge risk on this company, and he made it out of there, and he actually got a lot of reward, a lot of payout for that. So I think there's like a thing where the Bitcoiners see that putting huge amount of efforts and also a little bit of risk to something actually pays off in the long run. And you have this low time preference things. It's like, I work really hard now. I want to do something substantial now, that so it pays off in 10, 20 years, and I can actually lift my family up a level. I'm not sure if this is a thing. It's just something that when I talk with Bitcoiners about like what actually shaped them as a human being, I noticed that they all kind of talk about wanting to provide more for their family than they had or their parents could give them. And I'm not sure how it was with you, but like this is something that I had like very deep in me, and I still have very deep in me, that like I want to make something even better. Like my dad did amazing. He founded a company. Like he got from like lower middle class to like higher middle class, and I'm like, I really want to have more than that. It's maybe a normal thing, but like I see this in Bitcoin.
So is that what gave you the mentality to start buying stocks at 22 years old? Because at 22 years old, man, the last thing I was thinking about is buying stocks, dude. I was like, I was drinking, partying, dating girls, like having fun. Like I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to make money, but that was like, it was pretty low on my list of priorities at 22.
I started with 18, and I actually wanted to start earlier. I wanted to start with like 17 years old, but I couldn't open a bank account because like they just don't let you in Austria when you're not 18 years old. And I was too afraid to go to my parents. I was like, what will they say? Like it almost felt illegal to invest in stocks. Like, it felt like I'm doing something wrong here. But as soon as I was 18 years old, I opened my first brokerage account and invested in stocks, in funds. Like I had no clue what I was doing, but I did something. And the good thing is when you're starting very early with things, you can mess up a lot, because if you are 18 years old and you have nothing in as a capital, like the same as every 18-year-old dude. And so this was like I did it very early on, and this might also be the reason why I like always wanted to do something with the money. Like I was that kid that sat in the last row in the school when I was 17 years old, and I researched stocks. And I didn't pay attention to like the math class,
That's
like the
incredible.
English class. And maybe I should have paid more attention to the English class. But like I researched stocks. I was in the conference calls in 2 a.m. because they're all American companies and they're like 2 a.m. in Austria. And reading the 10Ks and 10Qs, like this long, very boring SEC filings, I read with 18 years old.
Oh my gosh! Just because you wanted to invest and build wealth.
Yeah, I wanted to do more. Like at first, I started with saving. I started with just like putting my money in a savings vehicle in my bank, which gave me like 0.2% interest rates or something, like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, like it does nothing. I was doing the calculation, how much will it be in 10 years? Like, okay, like still nothing. Even with like 0.1% interest rate compounding, that nothing comes out of that. And so you need a higher rate. And so I was just searching, like how do you get the higher interest rates? How do you get more compounding interest rates and more compounding return on your investment? And I got to stocks eventually. And so after stocks, then Bitcoin came.
And so you interviewed 680 some odd people, just one after another, day to day to day. What would be like the common theme amongst the Bitcoiners and how they came to Bitcoin? Is it like people that went through the financial crisis, people that grew up in, jurisdictions with hyperinflation, people who had trauma, or like, I don't know, people who had mistrust for the system for some sort of reason? Like what's the common theme across the board?
There's actually not that many common themes, because there's so many different people and they come from so many different backgrounds. There are people that already had a lot of wealth, that might have been an entrepreneur, that might have been already coming from a background where they already had capital. And we always say like Bitcoin, those who need Bitcoin the most will get it the most, but I'm not sure if this is always true, because people that have already a lot of wealth, they also have the most to lose with inflation. They also have the most, like if you
think about that a lot.
If you think about what Microsoft and Amazon, Apple have on their balance sheets, like there's billions and billions of dollars, they're losing, even if you go conservative with like, I don't know, 3% inflation or 4% inflation, they're losing a lot of purchasing power every single day, more than a whole country needs.
Yeah.
And so there's like that cohort of people that actually have wealth and they want to protect that wealth, and they invest a lot of time into how can I actually protect that wealth, because it's a lot. If you have, if you worked hard and you have, let's say, $1 million to your name, and you need that $1 million to pay for things for your family, maybe you have your 2 kids, you have your wife, you have a high incentive to keep that and not be there one day and like, oh yeah, I still have like 800,000 left, but it doesn't buy me anything because we are hyperinflated, and like I should have bought some Bitcoin, I should have bought some stocks, I should have bought some real estate, I should have bought some gold. So there's like this cohort of people. Then there's also the cohort of people that just like came from being angry at the system, I would say. Being angry at like what the system has done to them, what the system is still doing to them, from the banking system, from the government. They're just like upset with like how things are generally working. They sometimes also fit in this other category with being wealthy, or sometimes not, but they are very upset with the system, how it is working. So those are the 2 main ones. And then I actually see it less and less, the people that really struggle with money like day to day and they struggle to pay bills. I just think they are not as present in Bitcoin because they struggle so much with making the daily bills happening. They work the 2 jobs, they are the single moms, single dads, and they try to survive. And so for them, it's hard to even think about Bitcoin.
Yeah,
like,
investing or saving isn't really an option for,
like
for people who are hand to hand, paycheck to paycheck.
If you have like $100 left on end of the month, the least of your concern is like investing Bitcoin. It is a risky, speculative thing. And you also usually don't have time to look deeper. So you get, it's not risky and speculative. So this is I think, the 3 most common themes I see.
Yeah, I wonder how many people there are. There has to be a lot of individuals using Bitcoin that are living in places like Venezuela or Zimbabwe that they're just not doing the podcast tour or tweeting about Bitcoin, but they're using Bitcoin instead of their really shitty currency. I'm going to assume that there's a lot of that happening. But yeah, if you don't have anything to save, then you're not spending any time figuring out where am I going to save my money. And then when people are like, yo, you should just get some Bitcoin. They're like, yeah, I'm just trying to buy groceries next month. What are you fucking talking about? I need Bitcoin.
Look at the Google Trends. I mean, Nigeria is up there. And how many Nigerian Bitcoiners are on the podcast circus? They're not a lot, but it's like where the most search volume is. I don't know what exactly the numbers is right now, but like last time I checked, Nigeria was one of the biggest search volumes in Google Trends for Bitcoin.
Interesting.
And all those African countries. And that's why I like doing it, because people ask me, especially German people ask me, why do I do the podcast in English and not in German? Most people think because I can reach a big audience, and yeah, this is like a small reasons of that, but actually the guest is the main reason. If I only talk with German people, I get people from Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. Not such a diverse group. Like they all are doing fine.
Yeah,
they are usually doing financially quite okay. But if you then go ahead and you get your perspective from Africa, from Australia, from America, from Canada, from all across the world. India, I had Indian people on. They're fascinating also because they have this rich history of gold and how the Britain got the gold stolen from them. Other way around. The Brits stole the gold from them. And so like they value gold really, really, really highly, even to the fact that like it's standard to gift gold in marriages to the other family and to the wife. So if you really expand your horizon out of your small circle, which most people don't do, they stay in a small circle and they're like, oh yeah, I know Bob and I know this dude, and yeah, that's the whole world. And now I apply this thinking to everyone. That's why this was the main reason for me why I switched from German content creation to like English content creation, because I want to speak with someone from India and Africa and Canada. And I mean, this show would have never happened if I would have made German content. No matter how successful I would have been in Germany, I probably would have never been here and have this great conversations with so many different people from so many different parts of the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious, growing up, I think this is common. A lot of us grow up and we think that people across the planet are so different because there's a lot of cultural differences. Um, what do you think about the differences from people growing up in very different areas who come into Bitcoin? It kind of seems like we're all just humans trying to achieve the same thing. We want to work and keep what we earn and not be poor and lied to and stolen from. Is there like a unifying force behind this, like, I don't know, Bitcoin ideology, I guess I would say?
I wish I had a better answer for that, but I don't think there is one. I There is so many different people with so many different backgrounds, with so many different motivations coming to this asset. I mean, we just talked about Saylor. Like he has very different intentions with Bitcoin than an 18-year-old kid in Nigeria.
Yeah.
They look at Bitcoin very differently, and what they can do with Bitcoin is very different. And so the motivation and the theme behind becoming a Bitcoiner is like so radically different, and I think that's a good thing. We and we over analyze what Bitcoin actually means for everyone, because in the end of the day it's just a tool, it's money, and like and we portray our own values into this thing. That's why people say like I got a I talked last time with Mark about plant-based food and how he tried it out and he's living on there. Like it's nothing for me. I love some meat sometimes, but the one of the top comment was like carnivore is more aligned with Bitcoin. And I'm like, okay, I get where you're coming from. I understand your logical thing, how you got there. But what does this have to do with anything? Like, it's like, like it's money. And yes, you're most likely just saying that because you are a Bitcoiner and you love carnivore and you're portraying this into the asset. This is just a tool. It's money. It's the same way of saying like, oh yeah, like driving a great car is aligned with eating that kind of food. Like, yeah, maybe those people that drive that car usually eat that food, but like it doesn't fully connect. Like you're just trying to figure out a pattern.
Yeah.
And so I'm sometimes a little bit almost annoyed and with Bitcoiners that try to push Bitcoin in certain directions. Like, yeah, like if you're a Bitcoiner, you're a carnivore, you vote for Trump, you do all those things. And I just know this is not true, because every time I have someone that, like I had people before the presidential election on, most of them spoke positively about Trump, and some of them even for Kamala Harris and Biden. And every time I have someone speaking about Biden positively, someone in comments like he's an idiot, vote for Trump. And if I have someone that advocates for Trump, I have someone saying like, hey, he's an idiot, vote for Biden. Like it's always the other way around. And people always make like Bitcoin is in the end of the day just a tool and money that we can do whatever we want to do with it. It's like a permissionless open source code.
Yeah, and what do you think the reason the Bitcoin community on average was more in support of Trump and more, inclined to eat a lot of meat? I think about it like Kamala Harris was leaning towards the communist, socialistic side of the spectrum. Trump's more capitalistic, and that's going to be more in line with property rights. And then I think with the beef thing, I mean, I remember growing up, there was this idea, cow farts. They're boiling the oceans. And you start to realize that it's not a scarcity issue. We don't have the inability to produce enough quality meat. We have a inflationary monetary issue. We have a money problem that's creating artificial scarcity. So I think that is what the reason that would drive Bitcoiners. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
There is 100% something like fiat food. If you have broken money and broken incentives, you 100% incentivize people, because if you just think about it from first principle, I as we said before, like we're average dudes, so we don't have the degrees, we don't have like the deep knowledge and like the deep degrees in something and like the specialized knowledge. So I always like to break things down so I can also explain it my like 10-year-old cousin. And if you explain to the 10-year-old cousin, you have someone that wants to buy food at a grocery store. And if the grocery store keeps on getting more expensive, so like the banana gets more expensive, like your steak gets more expensive, all of that. People don't like that. People really dislike that the thing they're buying for eating, such an essential thing, it gets more expensive. And because people really dislike that, the incentive is to produce it cheaper, to produce it in less quality, so that people still have for the same price the same product but for less quality. Because the quality, you don't see it first place. You're just like, okay, price, steak, I bought it, but like, where does the steak come from? Like, what is the quality from that steak and all of that? There's a big difference in that. And so like, of course, if you have fiat currencies and you break the monetary system, you are naturally inclined to have less quality products in general, like food, all the products across the board. And so having Bitcoin would incentivize people to eat real food, less processed food. Like there's a whole thing with processed food, and like this convenient food and this instant food and the instant noodles and things like that. This is a product of fiat economy. You force people to work as much as possible because you steal their purchasing power away. They can not afford any fancy food, so they have to buy that food, and it's also faster. And so like you have that fancy food that is affordable enough for the fiat standard and is fast enough for the fiat standard, because you don't have time to eat. You don't have time to sit down in lunch for 2-3 hours and just like enjoy a good steak. But I refuse that Bitcoin means meat.
Yeah. Bitcoin means freedom,
Exactly.
right? You should be able to do whatever you want to do. You should be able to work, earn something, and keep it.
Exactly. And so like, I think there is something like fiat food and Bitcoin food, but it's more about the quality and the strength behind it, and not the like what exactly it is.
Yeah.
Would you rather have 1 Bitcoin today or 2 Bitcoin a few years from now? Bitcoin mining is a tried and true strategy for accumulating Bitcoin. Over a 2 to 4 year time frame, successful miners have consistently accumulated more Bitcoin than they otherwise would with a traditional dollar cost average strategy. Blockware mining as a service enables you to start mining Bitcoin from your laptop. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. Plus, with Blockware's one-of-a-kind mining marketplace, you can buy and sell live Bitcoin miners with just a few keystrokes. In this marketplace, buyers get to purchase live machines at vetted facilities, enabling them to mine with zero lead time. And sellers get the opportunity to liquidate their machines and hosting contracts at will. This means you can mine Bitcoin with zero long-term commitment and high liquidity on your mining rigs. Blockware will even cover your energy bill for 1 week per mining rig when you sign up at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Again, that's 1 free week of Bitcoin mining at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. And on top of this offer, you can also use code BREEDLOVE to get $100 off your first mining rig with Blockware Solutions.
Yeah, and well said. I get, I oscillate back and forth from being like kind of discouraged and bummed about the direction our planet or our civilization is going, and then being very optimistic, because you have two opposing forces. We are getting much better at producing things. Technology is advancing. We're becoming more sophisticated. But then you have the issue with the inflation. And as the price is rising on your inputs, you can do one of two things: raise the price of your product or decrease your inputs by cutting costs somewhere. And I think about every single time I get into my Ford pickup truck, This thing was $84,000 brand new. It's a 2020. And it's got plastic all through it that looks like brushed aluminum. And I'm thinking like, if we were on a hard money standard, even if we could have kept like some of the gold standard, ideas in place, like would my truck not have all this shitty plastic everywhere? It's these two opposing forces that's like, some things are getting really good. But what does the world look like when we can eliminate that downward pressure to decrease the quality of things or to cut costs? It makes me like really hopeful for the future. But then once again, it's like I look at society and I get a little discouraged and I have to like, remember like we're doing really well for like what we're working with. And like, if we could just push through and just get into this Bitcoin standard era.
That's why I think we always research what Bitcoin is, and we try to figure out how can we describe what Bitcoin actually is. And so when I first got into Bitcoin, as I already said, I thought it's a scam. Then I tried to figure it more out, and I was like, okay, it might be an interesting investment. Then you get to the hump of like, oh, it's actually not investment, it's actually savings tool. Then you slowly get to, oh, okay, I can also use this money. It's like money. And all those things are true. Like if you say Bitcoin is money, if you say Bitcoin is a savings vehicle, all those things are very true. But the underlying truth is it's a fork in the road of human civilization. It's the same thing as the electricity was, the same thing as a fire or wheel or any of those foundational inventions were for us. And so what you describe is amazing, because when you come to the realization that as humans progress, we get better in producing things. Like when I first started the podcast, I didn't get anything for it, and I was really shitty in it. Now, every episode I do, I get something for that, and I'm a lot better in it. So like we get naturally better over time when we do things more often. if you are like most human beings, at least. Yep. It's a whole nother debate now. And so for me, I see that we progress as humans, as civilization, but we're missing one point. It's the money, and it kind of drags us down. And politicians and central bankers must be so grateful that we have a deflationary force on everything, because without that deflationary force on technology, how fast you can do now things with ChatGPT versus not ChatGPT, how fast you can do things now because we have a car we can drive around with, and we don't have to walk everywhere or take the horse carriage, or how efficient things are now working because of electricity or the internet in general. All those things brought massive deflationary forces onto our world. And so if you have that, and then also you have that kind of sea level uprising with the monetary system, those two forces are naturally coming together, and they print so much money that the huge deflationary force cannot correct the inflationary force. That's why they aim for like 1%, 2%, 3%. Because then maybe this actually is like balancing out the deflationary force of technology and the inflationary force of the monetary system. And so this is the real evil part of it, that inflation is not, if the official inflation rate or like the actual inflation rate for you is 5 or 7%, it's not 5 or 7%, because you're measuring from zero. It should be already like 2, 3, 5% down, or maybe even like 10%, depending on like what product, like a banana, we cannot get that much better in like
what the productivity gains were in the marketplace.
And so that's why I think AI and Bitcoin together is really interesting, because all of a sudden you have a monetary revolution where it keeps your energy, and technology revolution where before you needed a team of 5, 6 people, now you need one guy that does it the same way with like all those AI bots. It's the same way with the tractor. Like if you think about back in the farm, like there was like a time and place in the USA where 80% of people worked on farms. Now how many people work on farms? Like, I don't know, 5%? Something like that, directly on farms. Like a very low amount compared to like hundreds of years ago, because we got way more efficient in working on the farm and getting all those things across. The job that 20 people on the field did the whole day, now 2 dudes with a tractor can do way faster.
Yeah.
They're like way more efficient. The same with AI, the same with all the technologies. And so having those technology innovations coming together with a monetary revolution is, for me, the true fork in the road of human civilization. And we're super early in this like long-term view of that. And it feels like we already see it. We hear it in podcasts. We read about it, and it feels like 2026 now is the year everything changes, and like 2027 now, like. But this takes decades. Like this is something that where minds have to be shifted, where we have to really. I'm pretty young. I'm 27 years old now. I do not think that I will see the full effect that Bitcoin will have on humans. Maybe we make a big leap in medical, where Brian Johnson, like we have like those groups of people that like we're living to like 200, 300, 400 years old, but like with a normal life expectancy of like, let's say 70, 80 years old, I do not think I see in the next 50 years the full effect that Bitcoin will actually have on society, because it's such a huge one that it needs time. I just heard that today actually, because I listened to the Seyr interview where it got heated in the way, and to the end he said something very true, and it's always fascinating to think about innovations and how they get accepted and how they actually get viewed. It took 30 years for 75% of the people to accept that electricity is a good idea.
Yeah, I listened to that part of the podcast this morning as well. That's kind of recalibrates your thinking around what's happening with Bitcoin.
Yeah,
30 years for 75% of the businesses to adopt electricity. That's pretty incredible.
And we are like 16 years in, and if you go out on the streets and ask now 200 people, do you think you will own Bitcoin in 10 years? I think almost nobody says yes. Like there's like a very small group of people that says yes, and those people that say yes probably already own it now. But the truth is, I think in 10, 20, 50 years, most of them will actually have some exposure to Bitcoin. Maybe not directly, maybe not in self-custody, maybe through because they invest in the S&P 500, maybe because they have an advisory with the pension funds and there's like some Bitcoin portion in there. Like I don't think we get everyone to the degree that we are with self-custody and going really deep in it. But I think most people will have a huge exposure to Bitcoin.
So you don't think we're in for some hyper Bitcoinization moment, some moment where fiat hyperinflates and everybody figures it out? You think we're going to have a nice gradual transition that's going to take a long time?
I think this meme of gradually then suddenly, I could imagine that it's happening. I hope it's not happening. If you think about the fiat currencies as the Titanic, there were a lot of people when the boat started sinking that were still dancing, still eating their steaks, still enjoying themselves, because they thought like, oh, this ship cannot sink. They thought like, there's like some rumor going on, there's something like going on. The first boat of the Titanic was the boat, I think 7, the number 7 was the first one that left. And there were 36 places free on that boat.
Oh, really?
There were a lot of places on that boat still free. There's many reasons for that. There's the reason that the crew was not nicely trained on that, because like it never happened before. Like people are like, oh shit, like what do we do? There was a lot of panic, but at the same time also a lot of people didn't even realize it. People were like, yeah, like there's things going on, but like I'm enjoying my steak here and I look out in the ocean and everything is fine.
You know, hearing that makes me solidifies my help. It confirms my suspicion that the Titanic was sunk by JP Morgan and his cronies, and it didn't hit an iceberg. Because you would imagine if it hit an iceberg, people would be more a little bit freaked out, but you could be having a nice evening, dancing, doing whatever. You'd have a bomb explode in the hole, and half the people wouldn't even know.
Yeah, and it shows, like, no matter what really happened there, I think it shows also that people often they like the status quo so much, and they think very highly of the status quo. So the thing that is currently big cannot be small, and the thing that is currently small cannot be big, kind of a thinking. And so I could also imagine people sitting there, and I think the captain actually said before, like, not even God can sink the ship, so like some ridiculous quote like that. And so there was this belief of like, how can it even sink? Like, how can it even like go down? If you have that, and people then just like blissfully like, oh, like it cannot sink, like it will not happen. You have just people like the same thing I now see with the fiat. Oh, that's what was my point. Yeah, the same thing I see now with the fiat currency. There are people that see the euro and the dollar losing value over time. I think nobody debates that over 10, 20 years, like the dollar, the euro, or any other currency is not a good investment. You shouldn't keep your money there. But a lot of people still do because they like the safety. They rather not lose tomorrow 10% in purchasing power, but they rather lose it over a year and 2 years and 3 years because they have the safety to tomorrow. And so this is the current thing that is big for them, and this cannot be small.
And what do you think that is? Because I really, I think I alluded to this. I struggle with that. I try not to be insensitive, but it's like, it's so obvious. Like, you can't save dollars. Like, you have to invest in something. Like, and there are a lot of people that, even my father, like, he's still, I cannot believe he hasn't had that like aha moment. I've been ranting about Bitcoin, and every time I talk with this guy for 8 years or something, and he still is like, yeah, my stocks are doing good. Like, is it because they don't have that existential crisis, or more so that they're unaware of the existential crisis that they have? Is it indoctrination, a combination of all of that? People also don't like admitting to themselves that they've been lied to or duped. Like, I think about a clip with Jordan Peterson, and my dad actually says the same thing, essentially. Jordan Peterson's like, I still am not recovering from being lied to with the food pyramid. Like, he's like pissed. My dad brought it up like 6 months ago. Like, I'm pissed. I was eating, I can't believe it's not butter. It's this seed oil garbage, all these carbs. Like, the government lied to everybody. And so is that, what is that's causing people to accept that maybe what they've been told is total bullshit?
There's a huge bias that I now have from Austria and the Western world, which might not apply the same way to Nigeria and all the other places, but I think people in America, people in Europe, Canada, Australia can relate to that. Most people still think that those people with those degrees in those fancy central bank positions, in those government positions, in all those high up institutions actually know what they're doing
and have their best interest in mind,
and have their best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And I just no longer believe that. And I think this is the main reason why people still feel comfortable, because there is some higher up, and it's always easy to blame people. It's if you notice, I mean, you've seen it probably in your life way more than me. People don't like take responsibility. If you are a person in 2026 that takes responsibility for your own action, you are ahead of 99% of planet Earth.
And you're likely not paycheck to paycheck.
You're likely not to pay, or a very good paycheck to paycheck.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but you're not paycheck to paycheck because you're saving and you're investing and things like that. And so I think this is the main reason. They like to blame someone else. They like to save their financial energy in the dollar, have some investment advice in the bank that says I'm like this, there, and that. And then they can say, yeah, my my investment advisor made this year nothing. And like he totally bunked it. Like he didn't see the innovation, like he was so bad. Oh yeah, and like the purchasing power, like the inflation, it was crazy this year. Like that's why I'm struggling. No, you're struggling because you didn't take self-responsibility. You didn't take your own money in your own hands. And so this is probably the root of the problem. The people, if we always say like Bitcoin fixes this, and I like strongly disagree with a lot of things that people say Bitcoin will fix, but a lot of things will also Bitcoin fix. But if we actually have something that fixes everything, would be if people take self-responsibility for their own action. But it's hard. You don't want to do that, because then you have to admit to yourself that you're actually stupid, that you actually don't know anything, and that you have to humble yourself and actually learn something.
Yeah.
It's hard because you struggle with that. You're like, okay, I missed that opportunity. I looked at that in a bad way. Like I struggle now with strategy. I see now more the genius behind that. I still think you shouldn't hold a lot in there. Like self-custody Bitcoin is the main play. Don't give someone else your Bitcoin.
And Seyr will straight say that.
Yeah, he says
buy
that.
Bitcoin.
But I had Seyr on my podcast. I was at his 100K party, and I totally dismissed strategy and never researched. And it bugs me. Like,
really?
Why did I not do that?
Why does it bother you? Because you missed those gains?
Like partially, probably also, but it just bothers me because it is something I should have done. If you have self-responsibility and you take care of your own finances, this is something very logical to do. I mean, if you have a billionaire on your own podcast that has a stock in something that you are very passionate about, and you're not researching that, like I clearly did something wrong.
Interesting.
This is like something where what I'm realizing now. Over the holidays, I had more time, and I was like, oh wait, like I completely missed strategy, and not from a gains perspective. Like, oh, I missed so many gains. Now it's actually, if you think about a good entry price, maybe we're down 60% the last half year. Like it's kind of a good entry price. We're where we went like 3 years ago or something like that, the price of that. So it's less the gains, because now it's actually a kind of good entry price. We're not hugely up there.
Yeah.
It's more that, like, why did I not invest more time into that? And this is something.
And you must have interviewed tons of people who were like Puncher Jeff, you know? I'm sure you had him on the show.
I didn't have him on the show,
really?
actually, but like I had like really a lot of people into the strategy world that told me about how great strategy is and why it's great. And Jason Palmery actually was the guy that like made it click for me, that said like, okay, I actually should like really invest in this whole thing. And I think he just said like one sentence. If you believe in Bitcoin, isn't it logical that the company with the most Bitcoin will be the biggest company on planet Earth? And I was like, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I've had a couple people reach out to me over the last year and a half and ask, hey, like, what do you think about strategy? And I think if you have money locked up in a 401k and you can't access main chain Bitcoin, I think strategy is a real good one. For me personally, I'm just this is ironic in some ways, very risk adverse. And for somebody who's got all their money in Bitcoin and was a professional cannabis grower for 17 years, I am very risk adverse. So when it was, I thought about it in like 2021, 22, 23, like, I don't know. Just seemed a little bit risky. I'd rather have that Bitcoin in self-custody. And then it turned into like, when I started to really get the strategy thing, it would have been me selling Bitcoin to buy MicroStrategy, and not doing that. So
I can't do that either. That's why I'm only buying some strategy stock with money that comes freshly in.
Yeah.
I can't. I thought about it, but I just can't do it. But actually, there's something interesting. I'm curious also how you think about that, because I think Bitcoiners think that just having Bitcoin in self-custody, that's their personal finance. And I think you can do a lot more. So if you're just a Bitcoiner and you save every single month like your $200, $1,000, $2,000, whatever your savings rate is, into Bitcoin directly, that's freaking awesome. You're doing amazingly good, and you can access those Bitcoin anytime. You have the most pristine asset ever, and you have the best money ever, and you will do very, very good in the long run. But we should also talk about having cash reserves in the short term. I think you can actually stack more Bitcoin if you have some cash reserves for yourself to pay for things in case your car breaks down and your roof breaks down, like whatever happens. If you don't have to sell your Bitcoin and you can access a cash reserve in that moment, don't have to maybe pay capital gains tax on that or like make a major loss because like in right that moment when the car breaks down, Bitcoin dips like 30%. If you have a cash reserve to use it for your personal finance reasons, it can be very good for you. And this is something where Bitcoin is like, I have my Bitcoin, and like that's all I need. And that's mostly true. Like
tell that
like
to somebody who put their savings into Bitcoin at 50, 60K in 2021 or whatever, and then it trades down to 15 grand. You know, like that's, so what you're saying has a lot of validity. And I think a lot about that. I talk about it with friends that I've, you know, kind of orange pilled and have started to take on a position. If you can hold on to your Bitcoin and be a net saver for long enough, 4 to 8 years, then it doesn't matter if it draws down 80%. You're still better off selling the Bitcoin, paying capital gains than you would be sitting on cash. So I think it matters the duration of how long you can hold on to the Bitcoin. But I also think that once again, like in Seyr says this, you know, you shouldn't buy Bitcoin with money you need to pay your bills next month. So you should definitely be, you know, financially responsible and intelligent.
And I think we should use the knowledge that we have that the fiat system is so broken. You can, for example, borrow against it. You can do things with the Bitcoin. But actually, if you think about what more you can do if you have some strategy stock, it's like way more already in the system of like using that as like you're borrowing against things. And I usually try to stay away from debt at all. Like I just have Bitcoin as money, maybe have some cash reserve. Like if you have, let's say 3 months or like 6 months or like it really depends. Like this is also so hard to talk about that because if you're not 18 years old and you're just like starting out, like go all in. Like
yeah, totally.
Who cares about cash reserves at that age? But if you're, let's say, 47 years old, you have 3 kids and a wife, and you're the sole earner of the household, it might be a good idea to have some runway on cash reserves. Yeah,
and I've thought a lot about, you know, I have a lot of responsibility. I'm married. I got a 4-year-old daughter and now a 2-month-old boy. And what happens if this all blows up? You know, and I think, and this is kind of where I get a little bit more spiritual. I heard somebody say, true abundance is your ability to do what you have to do when you have to do it. And if you have that, you'll have everything you ever need. And so, and I'm kind of a revolutionary. I'm going to ride this thing to infinity or zero. Like, I don't give a fuck, dude. Like, I am going to commit my life to this because I truly believe this is our one shot to really change the world for the better. So I guess I am kind of willing to take some risk from that perspective. But then it's also a responsibility thing. Like I could see the allure of having some strategy or IBIT because, like, you know, dude, Bitcoin in self-custody, you can't mess it up or it's gone. And so that's like it's an interesting thing. It really puts you in a position where you have to like get right with yourself and really make the decision from, you know, the place of like, what am I trying to achieve here? And how much am I trying to, you know, take action based upon self-preservation, and how much am I trying to affect change in the world? But of course, you know, like you can't do anything crazy if you have responsibility and dependence and whatever. And so, yeah, it's a very nuanced and interesting thing. I'm curious what, after speaking with all of these people, okay, I'm even going to go back. You said that Bitcoiners say that Bitcoin fixes this, but you don't think Bitcoin fixes everything. What are the things that you think Bitcoin doesn't fix?
I think, first of all, it's interesting to go what I think Bitcoin fixes, and then it makes more sense what Bitcoin doesn't fix. The first thing that Bitcoin really fixes is human incentive. And everything else is an abstract of that. So Bitcoin doesn't fix health or like medicines or like relationships or all of those things. But it has it brings a new monetary revolution where it gives the place for those things to be fixed. And so I actually think Bitcoin itself doesn't fix anything directly except incentives. And then those incentives drive a better change. And you will still have problems. Like you still have human problems that people love each other or hate each other. I think this whole war thing also, I think there will still be war with Bitcoin. It will just be very different because all of a sudden the people that do the war actually have to pay for that war and cannot print just money into the future, and the war will be a lot shorter. Mm-hmm. But there will still be conflict.
Totally.
People will still hate on each other. Like Bitcoin just doesn't just magically change human nature forever in our lifetimes at least, but long term we have the vision at least that Bitcoin can fix those things. But if you've asked me what doesn't Bitcoin fix, like the list of all things in the world except incentives. I think incentives is actually the only thing that Bitcoin fixes, and everything that Bitcoin fixes comes from the fixed incentives. Because if you have the right girl at your side, but you're struggling financially so hard that you have to work so hard and you never see her, the relationship also struggles because you don't make time for her, and like it probably ends up in a bad place. But if you have the financial capabilities and you spend time with her, like you make it work and you make kids, and like you make like spending time with each other is like really important part in a relationship. And so this is the incentives. So like you can make an argument like, oh yeah, like Bitcoin fixes relationships, but it doesn't. Like if both don't make it work, even though they have a lot of money, like there are people crying in Ferraris. This is a real thing. Depressed people, there are suicidal people that make a lot of money. Actually, like I think it's easier to kill yourself if you have a lot of money, because if you don't have a lot of money, you have a very clear purpose in life, like don't survive.
Yeah, it's pretty black and white.
Make the bill for like next month, otherwise like you're on the street. And so actually like I'm not there yet at all, but the more and more the podcast grows and more the financial buffer grows, I'm questioning like what is the impact on that on a life. For example, I started my podcast 2 years ago. I was 25 years old. I was with the company for 6 years. And it was really hard to go away from that because I actually kind of liked it. I just didn't like IT security, but everything else I really liked there. It was like cool people. It was secure. Like 6 years I was already there. And it was very unsure if I achieve anything in the Bitcoin world. I had a podcast that was about 2 months old and had about 100 or 200 weekly listeners. Like almost nothing, and I had a few Twitter followers, and I got one paycheck from Twitter, about $300, and I said, I have to do this now. Like I had like no certainty whatsoever. I had one sponsor that said, let's try it out for 2 months and let's see what happens. And then I might be able to pay you. But like this was like no security. Like let's try it out for 2 months. Maybe you're out on the streets in 2 months. But the one thing that actually enabled me to do that was my Bitcoin. I stacked 6 years in a job, Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, I don't know exactly how long, but I can live a few months off that. I can make it work for at least a little bit, so I'm not on the street on month one if I don't make my payments. And so this is actually something really beautiful. If you have a financial buffer, all of a sudden your time gets more valuable because you can think more of like, what do I actually want to do? Do I want to stay in that job? Do I want to maybe move, do something different? And then once you come to a point where you have all financial security that you ever need, and you don't have to work at all because of with all your calculations, and even if you spend a lot of money, you don't really have to work anymore. What happens then? I don't have an answer. I'm very far away from that. But it's interesting because like, why do you stand up? Like, what's the bigger thing? Like, if you already made everything for your family, then you need some bigger calling. And I think motivation also comes from there. Like, if you only want to provide for yourself, like it gets quite easy. Like you have a job, like you provide for yourself. It's awesome. Most people achieve that. Most people that listen to here, I would guess. And then the next motivation stage is like, you have a wife that might want to stay at home and watch the kids and educate the kids and raise the kids. Then you have 2 or 3 kids. Your motivation is not now one person, but 5 people. That's a lot more of motivation. Then maybe you have like an uncle that in need, or like a father that you have to care for, like whatever it is. Things can happen. Maybe you don't have that mom that you have to care for, but maybe you have it in 5 years. You don't know. And so having motivation above yourself is like something really that drives at least me a lot.
Purpose.
Like it's purpose. Like, and the bigger the purpose, the bigger the motivation is. If the purpose is just like, oh yeah, I wanna eat some food at the end of the month, like you can do that. Like it's not as ambitious.
Yeah.
One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove.
You know, you said there's people crying in Ferraris. I'm curious, what do you think the reason that, because generally speaking, and I mean, I guess I can't think of any Bitcoiners that are really miserable. I guess maybe you got those Twitter trolls hiding behind some emoji that are just hate tweeting, probably popping zits, eating pizza in their parents' basement or something. I don't know, upset with their lives for whatever reason. But generally, you have people that get into Bitcoin and it like just completely revitalizes their enthusiasm for life. What do you think the reason for that is? And would you agree with that after talking with so many Bitcoiners?
It's so interesting because if you ask me, like, what is the biggest learning you had from the Bitcoin podcast about Bitcoin, I would say it's not about Bitcoin at all. I got a different sense for religion now. I have a different sense for purpose and family now. We're talking about all those Bitcoiners. The average guest is twice my age.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like there's a lot more life experience that I gained just by talking with all those people. I gained the life experience from 600 people that are twice my age in the last 2 years. that's a lot of learning. A lot of things have changed, and so there is the one aspect of it. Bitcoin tends to attract people that search for answers. If you are oblivious to what's going on, you will not get Bitcoin in 2026 even. And so it attracts people that are already questioning things, that are already motivated. And if you bring a lot of people together in a community that try to bring the family to the next level, try to go deeper, try to find that purpose in life, try to make things better and enjoy life and make those adventures, these entrepreneurial adventures like I did, they will be a lot more fulfilled. And if you also see, for example, I always love Bitcoin Prague when I'm there, because I'm like, there are a lot of happy people that are all kind of fit. I mean, like, of course, there's like one or two people, or like probably a lot more, that are not as fit. Like, it's not all like jacked people and like slim people, but generally a lot more than the average airport scenery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so you have, it attracts different kind of people. So I think we have to be careful with saying, okay, because Bitcoin attracts in the early stages those kind of people, that this translates to, okay, this will be the impact of Bitcoin to all of human civilization. I don't think we can do this calculation that easily. Because if you, for example, gather the earliest investors in the Tesla stock, you also have a very different crowd than the general population. And if everyone now holds Tesla, I don't think this will translate. I mean, Tesla is a very different example because like it's not money and all those things. But I think we have to be careful of saying like what Bitcoin actually will change in humans. So what you are now witnessing and what like we are now witnessing with like the Bitcoiners, what value set they have and how positive they think about life and what they're actually doing. I would be stoked to see that if Bitcoin is mainstream, the whole world thinks like that. But I'm careful with that translation because like we're in a very early group that attracts people. And if someone isn't in that group, they might also not feel connected to us and they go away again. And so, especially because we are so tribalistic, we are like so also toxic with things. So like, like it has to be that way and like that. Like a lot of people probably came in the Bitcoin community like, yeah, Bitcoin makes sense, but like those Bitcoiners like are weird. Assholes. Like they attack me because like I eat I drink a Coke and like now I get attacked.
Or I asked if Solana is a good investment. Just sliced in half. Yeah.
Have you seen that Twitter head of product Nikita Beer has like Solana partner in his?
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
I was so angry. I was like, no, like that's not. And then I was like, oh, I'm not a toxic maxi. Like he's just like convinced of a different thing. But yeah, I do think we have to be careful of making the assumption that just because this small circle, and then also like who are we seeing is very different to all the people that hold Bitcoin. The first, like, let's say we are 200 million Bitcoiners, whatever the number is of like Bitcoin and however you want to define a Bitcoiner. On the conference, or the biggest conference in Las Vegas, there are 30,000 people. 30,000 is a lot less than 200 million. And so we are not only seeing the earliest of the earliest investors, we are seeing those who actually first have enough money to go to those conferences and like just spend like 4 working days on a conference and be with Bitcoiners and don't do anything productive. And second, they have to be so passionate about it and so loving with the Bitcoin community that it just does not translate, I think, to the whole Bitcoin community. I make that example. Often we had that debate, core versus not in the summer in Bitcoin. And I asked my YouTube community, hey, where do you stand? What Bitcoin implementation are you running? And I got the top comment of that thing was, what is a Bitcoin node? Like, I think we are sometimes so deep into this small community that we overlook that there are a lot of Bitcoiners out there that have like 10 grand in Bitcoin, and it's like 1% of their portfolio, and they don't know anything about Bitcoin and they've never heard about our podcasting world. They just like listen to like 2 videos of someone talking about Bitcoin that might have never been on any of our podcasts, and they're like, yeah, hell yeah, that's a great idea, I buy it. And so like I always encourage cautions of translating our early small Bitcoin community right now to, so that's how the whole world will work in like 100 years. I would wish that, but I just don't see it.
God, that's you're wise beyond your years, man, for sure. I struggle with that too. Like I forget, like I've made all my friends are Bitcoiners now, and I'm like, I'm so grateful to be a part of this community that I just forget that there's, I don't know, most of the planet is like not figured it out, and they may never figure it out. They might end up getting some Bitcoin, but not, and they don't, in some sense, you don't need to understand all this stuff. It's kind of like, maybe we've gone a little crazy in some ways, but like, it's also frustrating though, because you're like, you look at these problems in the world and it's like, oh my God, if we could just wake everybody up. But I guess what I'm hearing you saying is that's an unrealistic expectation, and maybe reducing that expectation would mitigate that discomfort.
Yeah, I truly think so. And it's frustrating for me too. I have a huge family. Like my grandma and granddad from my mom's side made 6 kids, and from my dad's side another 4. So like, and then they also went ahead and made a lot of kids. And so there's like a huge cousin family. Like that, like if we gather everyone in one, like we would need to rent something. It's like a huge thing. And what I've witnessed is that even in my small circle of family, which is quite big, they are the people that are closest to me. Like there's one cousin that I speak most with, then my sister, my dad, my mom, and they all like, they don't get Bitcoin to the degree that I do, but like they are closer to Bitcoin, they have Bitcoin, they are like more into that. But then there are the people that don't have like huge contacts to me, and so they like have no clue about Bitcoin. Like they're like, what, Bitcoin, you're still into this? And so I get on those like Easter holidays and like this Christmas holidays, always this reality check that there's a world out there that has nothing to, that works every day, that thinks every day, and there's like Bitcoin not even coming up at any time in their day, which is like crazy for us to think about.
Definitely. Yeah, so how has and you've talked a bit about it, but if you were going to just consolidate it into like one string of thought here, how has running the Bitcoin podcast and talking with 700 plus Bitcoiners changed you and your perspective about the world and your long-term plans as far as your family, yourself, your purpose?
Oh, that's a deep one. Before I started the podcast, I couldn't even imagine like marrying and doing kids. Like this was like not even a little bit on my radar. I was like, yeah, maybe if I'm 35 or 40 or maybe 50, I don't know.
Would you say that was just economic reasons?
It was just not even like in my head.
Okay.
There was not even like an actual thought in my head, like I want to do that. There was just like, no, it was not even the head. And so being exposed to so many Bitcoiners that talk about the importance of having a family, of the family unit. The family unit has an extremely important stance in the civilization, I think. This I did not have at all 2 years ago. This is something completely new for me. And there's a lot of like small things with that, but like learning about that was huge for me. Just was like the the outside of Bitcoin learnings. Of course, like there's a lot of Bitcoin learnings. Like I didn't even know about UTXO management in a big way. I did self custody from day one, but never cared about UTXO management. Then at some point in episode like 15 or so, a guest was like, "Hey, you should care about your UTXO management," and I'm like, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like technical things that I've learned. I think Bitcoin itself, the biggest thing I've learned is that Bitcoin is a natural force. There are things that humans can't do anything against it once we discovered something. So like if you can see a wave coming down the hill or a wave coming in from the ocean, and you're like, oh wow, that wave is so huge, it will go all over all the houses. You can debate if it's good or bad, you can argue it, you can scream at it, but like the wave is coming. Like there's a natural force that comes on you. In the same way I look at Bitcoin. I went back and forth in the beginning of when I went into Bitcoin. Is like, is it inevitable or can it still fall?
Me too.
But I think with the podcast, I realized that is a natural force, especially the idea of Bitcoin. There is still a very, very tiny chance, I think, that Bitcoin completely fails. But I think the idea of what Bitcoin is so deep now in the human civilization already in there, because there are a certain subgroup of people that care so deeply about it. And the idea is out there that it's only a matter of time till we get it right. I mean, there has been attempts before Bitcoin. There have been attempts like people talked before the 2000s, essentially what the idea of Bitcoin now is, way before Bitcoin even got discovered. And so even if Bitcoin now fails, we will get to the point where we have something like Bitcoin. I strongly believe that Bitcoin is the thing, and I think Bitcoin is a natural force. But even if you don't think that, the natural force of the idea of Bitcoin is so strong that it will come anyway. So this like might be like a Bitcoin learning. But yeah, like there's a lot of different subsets of small learnings that I got from all those guests. And I think life experience is just like the major one. I actually encourage as young person, and I know most people that listen to podcasts, I know from my statistics, I know from other people, and probably this podcast in the same way, most people that listen now are also twice my age.
And mostly men.
And mostly men. Like this is like from my experience. But if you think about it from a young person's perspective, you learn so much by listening to people that are older than you, because they have experienced things that you are going to experience in the coming years. And it's so hard in those early years of your life. Between 15 and 25, you think you are the best of the best in the world and you have figured it all out. And at the same time, you haven't figured anything out. And
Yeah.
I struggle with that a lot. It sounds like from what you said, like you also struggle with that. And it's like being humble and actually listening to people with way more life experience than you is a huge shortcut to life. And I didn't realize that from the podcast up until like a year ago, because then I was like, oh wait, I did change a lot. I didn't aim for that. I didn't realize that. But at some point, I was like, wow, like there's actually a lot of like different mindset shifts and just the thinking also. Like I'm thinking way bigger now than starting the podcast. I'm like thinking way further ahead, like thinking way bigger, and less in smaller groups. And so there's like listening to older people is a shortcut to life. And even if it's just like 10 years older than you, they already have 10 years more experience than you. And you have to be careful, like verify what they're saying, like take everything in, but like don't take everything to heart. Also slash your heroes sometimes, like all that. But in the most sense, if you listen to all the people, and I didn't expect at all that we going the other day, but listening to all the people in the last 2 years was a huge shortcut for me. And I will continue to do that because I think I have a lot left to learn with 27 years old.
Well, you're way ahead of the game. I'm sure it also had a great impact on your social skills and as well as building out a solid network. For me, I'm just like so pumped at the network of friends that I've built out across the whole globe. Without talking about Bitcoin, I would not have that network, which is borderline invaluable.
I think I don't know if this relates to Bitcoin at all. It probably does, because like if you go to those events and stuff like that, but having a podcast is the greatest thing for your network growth what you can possibly do. Especially have a good one where people actually want to come on. I went to this to this podcast studio in Vienna, and most people there that rent the podcast studio, that talked with the guy that actually rents it out, they don't earn anything with the podcast. They just want to have a podcast to invite people there and talk with that person for like 1-2 hours. That's the sole purpose of the podcast. And I don't think you should do it just for like inviting those people. I think if you really want to do a podcast, you should be passionate about the conversation. You should be actually invested in like what a podcast is and what it actually implies for the other person that listens to that. Like I'm a huge podcast junkie. I'm producing 7 to sometimes 8-9 podcasts a week on average since now 2 years or so.
That's incredible.
And I'm still listening every week to other podcasts. I'm like listening to my own podcast a lot already, listening to other podcasts. So I'm a huge junkie. But like having a podcast is something that you can invite people to is like huge for like network. Just like think about in the last 2 years, I got to know 600 different people. I didn't know them before. Like almost nobody from them I knew beforehand. And now like 600 more people I'm in contact with, and like I got to know you, and now I'm like here in Miami, and like just get to travel the world and like see cool friends of mine.
Yeah, it's a pretty special thing. How was what's been, and this is because I'm going through this process myself. What was your learning curve like in pertains to being a good conversationalist or interviewer? Because I was a guest on the show. And after we recorded, Robert's like, hey, do you want to co-host the show with me? I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, but like, I've never interviewed anybody in my life. That, and it's like, still, I'm a little uncomfortable. The camera turns on. It's like, oh, you get that, like the energy kind of shifts. I'm like, oh, people are going to be watching me. Like, so what was that process like for you? Because it's definitely been a trip for me.
It's always a little different from the moment where the camera turns on to the moment right before. It's interesting. I think to have a great conversation, you have to forget about all the environment, and those are the best conversations where you forget that you are actually on a podcast, where you actually forget your surroundings, and you all of a sudden are in this like energy flow, and you just like both actually enjoy the conversation, which is really hard to achieve. Even with great people coming together, the energy can still feel weird and still feel unnatural. And so having that skill, I have no clue how you can have that. Like I know it should be actually an expertise of mine. It should be something that I'm really good at, and I still feel I'm sucking at conversations.
I feel the same way. I think it's the social pressure, though. It's hardwired into us to like want to be socially accepted because our ancestors who weren't were ostracized and they died alone in the woods. So like it's hardwired into us to be accepted. So when you're exposing yourself, like there's a layer or level of vulnerability there.
Humans really need other humans. Like that is a hard thing where and people underestimate, I think, the impact they can have with a bad comment. I don't know if you also have that, but I read all my comments still. Like every single comment I got on YouTube, I read on Spotify also. Twitter, no longer that much. If you leave me a comment on Twitter, I might actually not read it. But YouTube and Spotify, I read the comment because most likely they at least watch some of the show and they have like an actual comment there. I mean, outside of being AI. And the impact that a small comment can have on you is huge. And it's like, why? There's like a random internet stranger that you have never seen before, has nothing to do with you, that you have no clue who he even is. He might just be Joe that is like completely overweight, is like at home eating chips and being pissed off from his wife. And because he's pissed off, he's like, I don't like this Robin guy. Like he said, like,
just fuck your head up for the next 2 days.
Yeah, like the comment that he left might have not even have anything to do with me. Might be completely 100% on him. But it still has an impact on me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a human being that wants to be accepted. I crave for like this attention thing. And like, this is, I know there's a lot of people like, oh, I don't care what other people say. I don't believe you. Like, I believe that you believe that. I believe that you try it and that you want to get away from that, what other people say and like the pressure on you. But I'm also almost 100% certain if I put you in a stadium, in the middle of the stadium where 200,000 people are around you, you will speak differently than to your girlfriend. And if you speak differently and if you're more unsure and you think more about what you say, it means that you actually care what the other people think of you and you're not yourself truly. The people that are the most successful on social media, either really great strategists and people that like just know the game really well, or people that are really good in being themselves and this relatable just guy. And or like just like having some other reasons. There's like there's this theory of mine. There's like 3 different types of famous people on the internet. There is the smart one that just like is super smart and you're like, oh, like every time I listen to him, like I actually learn something. Then there is the relatable guy. There's like, oh, dude, like he's like me. Like I can really relate to what he says. And then there's the third guy that is like third guy, mostly with girls, that is hot. like one of those 3 things.
Yeah.
And dangerous is if you're all 3, but I haven't found someone that fits all 3 things. But I might be wrong, but I don't believe there is someone that truly doesn't care what other people think.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
We have it so deep in us.
Yeah, well, and nobody who's achieving things and is successful is going to just get into your comments and shit talk you. It's always somebody who's like got some issue with themselves, you know, even because I mean, I read through the comments and every once in a while, like my first interview, I interviewed Canute and I wasn't actually planning on interviewing Canute. Robert got hung up in traffic. Canute's like showing up and he's like, you interview him. And I was like, ugh. Like, oh, I gotta interview this guy right now. And I was having a conversation with him just like I would off camera, you know, and he's saying things and I'm agreeing with him. I'm like, yeah, and I got hammered like 15 times in the comments. Could you stop saying
People really hate that.
That's a really good point. Like, all right, like that, you know, all right, I was maybe a little red in the face as I'm reading it for a moment, but I'm like, all right, that's valid. Like, but that's not the same thing as someone just trolling you and just spitting vitriol and hate towards you. And so that stuff actually is quite easy for me to dismiss. It's just the trolls. The haters.
I learned a lot through the comment section. There's 2 main things I want to point out. The first one I've learned is that I drop too many hints where I live. The operational security was so bad. And someone was writing me a DM and saying like, hey, Robin, you said this, and this. I roughly know exactly where you live. So
Interesting.
please move and please don't do that.
Wow.
And I was like, oh yeah, shit. Like it doesn't matter right now. Like I'm like a a small dude. I'm not a huge personality in the Bitcoin space. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a bunch of money. Like if you come to my house, you will be massively disappointed with what you
Same
can
here.
score. But it might actually be like it might be different in 10 years. It might be different in 20 years. And so this is like one like very practical learning I got from a viewer that just like I was so grateful for. It's like, oh yeah, like you are right. But the first response is always like, what is he talking about? Like, and then it's like it settles in like, oh, he's actually right. And the other thing was I was when I failed in my English class. So I was really self-conscious when I started the whole journey with like doing everything in English because I failed in English in the class. I had to repeat a class in my school because of English. And so I was super self-conscious about English. And one dude just rose like, dude, you're awesome. Why are you so self-conscious about how you speak? I understand you way more clearly than most Americans. And this just like, oh, I wasn't even aware that I was self-conscious about my speak. I had it in every 5th episode apologizing for my bad English. And then I was like, why do I apologize for in my English? It obviously is good enough that people understand me. Otherwise, they wouldn't listen to the podcast.
Totally. Yeah.
And so comments to the most degree are A, positive, and B, actually helpful. And there's like just like this 1%, 2% like assholes in there that you tend to focus on.
Yeah.
So there's a very special place called the farm at Okefenokee. It's a 1,000-acre regenerative farm community about 45 minutes northwest of Jacksonville, Florida. The farm is a completely off-grid community. It has total food, water, and energy independence. Everything on the farm is 100% organic, and it even features wild boar and bear hunting. The farm at Okefenokee is right next to the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, where you can do camping and canoeing tours. So if you're like me and you're interested in the self-sovereign lifestyle, then you can get your own lot on the farm at Okefenokee if you tell them that I sent you. Once you get a lot, you can build one of 3 custom cabin options. So if you value freedom, self-sovereignty, and living in touch with nature, then join me and my family. We have lot number 21, and we're going to be building a cabin there starting December 2025. To learn more about the farm at Okefenokee, go to okefarm.com and make sure to tell them that I sent you.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's see. We're running out of time here. What's your favorite? What was like the favorite podcast moment? You must have had some interesting, shocking moments happen in your time podcasting.
Oh gosh, how much time do you have?
I don't know, kind of as long as we need, but
I have many. So like there's the on-camera things and then there are off-camera things. The off-camera things like I had a fire alarm during a podcast happening. I had someone screaming and coming in, screaming into the room in the background, like like all those like funny small things that I edited out later. Or like there was the lights once completely going off in a podcast where like he was already all of a sudden sitting in a dark room. So there's like those like funny like small technical things. But the more interesting thing is the on camera things that really got me to think. And I think the most impressive one, the thing that stuck with me the most was Jeff Booth still. He was on my podcast when I still did it as a hobby. He is such an amazing guy that he comes on my podcast. I don't know, like the humbleness of this guy is on over the moon.
Top tier.
This is top tier. But you have to know that I had a podcast on YouTube that had 200 subscribers. and it had a Twitter following that's like, I don't know, 5,000 or something like that, 7,000 maybe, but nothing like huge, and just like shit posting there. And I reached out, and he started following me, and I reached out to him and said like, hey, I have this like podcast that I'm doing now since a month. You huge Bitcoin speaker, would you like to come on my show? And he's like, of course. Like, when? And like, he just came on after 1 month of podcasting with a non-existing podcast. The humbleness of this guy. But anyways, he was on my show, and the previous guest, I always have this end routine. The previous guest asked a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is. And the previous guest asked the question, what is the best advice you have for young Bitcoiners? What an amazing coincidence that like Jeff Booth gets that question. And Jeff Booth said like, told about that story, going through his whole financial energies already in Bitcoin, but still being tied up in the fiat world, and still being tied up with all your life energy in this fiat world, and not putting your life's energy into Bitcoin. And he said this like multiple times on many different podcasts now, but he said it there, and it hits so home for me. What are you doing if you are loving Bitcoin? You put all your monetary energy into Bitcoin, and you're so crazy about Bitcoin, but you still work outside of Bitcoin for the fiat system. This really hit home for me. This was like, oh gosh, like this was one of the trigger points for me that I might just have to take this podcast more seriously. And actually, I think 2 or 3 weeks after that, I just quit my job.
Incredible.
And so if I had to pick one moment, this is still my favorite moment because it changed my life forever.
Yeah.
And it was just like a small sentence he said, and it had a huge impact on me because I have huge respect for him and the humbleness of him. And so I take it seriously if he says something. And it made that podcast possible. Because back then I just had the podcast like once a week or something like that.
Yeah, Booth is he's had a lot of positive impact on a lot of people.
And you forget that because you just see him, and like he talks about Bitcoin. He's a great guy, but like the amounts of people he influenced that we never meet is huge. It's like the podcast that I did with him, I had like 200 followers, and his podcast pushed me over 1,000. And it got like 20K views or 30K, I don't know. And I was thinking, if 30,000 people watch him, and I'm just like a small ass like Bitcoiner, the impact that he has going on all those podcasts and making the round is huge. And this is really inspirational because like you can actually make a difference in people's life, and you can actually do something. And this is still the best moment in any Bitcoin conference if someone comes up to you and says like, yeah, like your podcast orange pilled me. And I'm like, oh dude, this is freaking amazing. And that's, by the way, before we end, I also want to really make sure I say that because this very podcast was one of the most substantial reasons why I got orange pilled so hard. The series, the deep thinkings
Me
with
too.
Breedlove, like that was really a huge reason. And having those podcasts being there so early on, that's huge. Because if you don't have all those podcasts and books and all those materials, it's way harder to go deep on it. And now you can just like press play and watch Breedlove and Seyr talk for like 15 hours. What is it? Like
Yeah,
endless hours.
15, 17 hours, something. Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, my whole world just changed.
I know when I listened to the Seyr series, that was like, oh man, this is for real. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, I'd already been grappling with some of the, ideas, but between the Seyr series, the Booth series, the Lowry series, like, those absolutely changed my life. Big deal.
And so I coming here, and I really want to say thank you to you because like you invited me and you like hey, you should come to Miami and just like let's record. And I was like so pumped.
Yeah, well, thank you, man.
Being on that show that was such a substantial contributor to my orange pilling, and now just sitting here and feeling like a total imposter.
I still feel it even in this moment, dude. Even in this moment, Robert, he's like, "Hey, you want to co-host?" I'm like, I have to do that." But like, oh, I don't know if I can, how well I can do, but I'll give it my best, man. You know?
I heard that quote, and I'm curious what you think about that. If you don't feel like an imposter, you're not pushing hard enough.
That's a good point. Yeah, if you're not right outside, like I've been for many years now, I've been like riding a wave right outside my comfort zone. But it's been a lot of personal growth. Like it's changed my life for the better. I think everybody should get up and, you know, if you have that feeling that you want to do something, you should do it. Even if it's scary. If it's scary, that's even more of a reason to do it. You're going to find yourself or learn more about yourself through that process.
That's crazy. How was it actually? I mean, I don't want to fall now into being the interviewer, but like I'm really curious about that. And I think people, I don't know if ever someone asked you that on the podcast, and people probably are really curious because I already told you this before. You come from this background where you basically lived as in the background as possible and what was not active everywhere on social media.
Yeah.
Now you are on the one of the most legendary Bitcoin podcasts ever, and you are the co-host in some of the videos as of now. You're the host, the actual host of the podcast. How was that for you going from like nobody knows me to like freaking everyone knows me when I go to a Bitcoin conference?
It's been very interesting. It's mirrored back to me a lot. It's confirmed to me that I'm in alignment with myself, and it feels really good when people come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I really like what you have to say." And really, I think what I'm most commonly told is that people like my energy. And I'm not an authority on anything. I've achieved some challenging things in my life, but I'm just fucking pumped, dude. I'm just really enthusiastic about what this technology means for our civilization, and I'm just super happy to be a part of it. And the reason that I'm here is because I did things that I was uncomfortable with, that I was being encouraged to do, and intuitively I knew I should do. I was in Pacific Bitcoin in 2023, and Matt Cratter was like, we had been chatting for 2 days, and at the end of the second day, he's like, "You need to make some content, dude." And I'm like, "Oh my God, how am I gonna do that?" Like, just the idea of it, like I've got red in the face, like, oh, dude, like I'm pretty introverted, and like like you said, I'd been living my life in hiding as a cannabis grower. The whole MO is like to not draw attention to yourself. Even though I was lawful under the state laws and whatnot, it was still like kind of taboo. So when I got home, it was like, how am I going to make content? Do I want to do that? Like, oh man. And then the conflict in the Middle East broke out. And so now I'm watching in real time, like conflict and kids and people like bloodshed. And I'm looking at my daughter and I'm like, all right, well, I believe in this thing. I need to speak up about it. So I just lit up a fat joint and started walking in laps around the greenhouse and put videos on Twitter. And yeah, Samson Mao reposted one of my videos. It got like, I don't know, a couple 100,000 views. I woke up the next day. I went from like 1,000 followers to like 4,000 or 5,000 followers overnight. I had to kind of pump the brakes a little bit because I was like, I wasn't quite ready for it in some ways. But, you know, when the universe is calling, or if like, you know, I'm like following the breadcrumbs of the universe is the way I look at it. Like opportunity is presenting itself and I have the option to make a fear-based decision and not do it or do it. And so I've just been saying yes and doing it. And so, you know, as far as to all the viewers, you know, I hope everybody, you know, enjoys what's been taking place, and we're going to keep on doing our best.
I love the breadcrumbs analogy because like this shows really nice that I think you said it before we started recording. because the line blurs out for me now. But you said like when we got into space, you always think like the Samson Miles, like the Cypherdeans, the sailors, they know so well exactly how everything plays out and how everything will shake out in the end. But then you get to know all of them and you're like, okay, they don't have an exact plan. Like it's not like they have like some master plan. And so like all they do is they look at all the breadcrumbs in front of them and they kind of analyze what might actually go on, like what's actually the future looking like. And I like the breadcrumbs and analogy a lot because this is all we can do, like look at the full picture and see what it might end up being.
Yeah, it's like we all know what's going to happen, but we don't know how it's going to happen.
That's the most interesting part about doing a podcast on Bitcoin. You know where we end up, but how are we getting there? This is what we document. Love that.
Yeah, well, that seems like a great place to stop. Where can people find you on the internet? What's your podcast and X?
Just my name. I guess my name is somewhere in the title or description or somewhere, and just like copy paste that in whatever platform you want to find me, and you will find me. And yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I was really nervous coming on the show. I was really excited to be on here. And this has been an amazing experience. Thank you so much, Eric.
Yep. Thank you, man.
We lock our doors, we encrypt our hard drives, and we use strong passwords. But most people leave one thing wide open: their phone line. SIM swap attacks are one of the fastest growing methods of digital theft. In minutes, a hacker can clone your accounts, reset your passwords, and drain your life. Unfortunately, this is not science fiction. It happens every single day. Efani is the only mobile service protection designed exclusively to protect you from SIM swap attacks. Efani offers military-grade encryption on their product and offers up to $5 million of SIM swap insurance. And to date, there have been exactly 0 SIM swaps on any of Efani's over 50,000 protected accounts. So you don't need to live in fear, you just need to protect your weakest link. Go to efani.com/breedlove to secure your phone line today. Again, that's Efani, EFANI.com/breedlove. For the past 25 years, I've been reading roughly 1 book per week. Almost entirely difficult nonfiction books, the kind that really shift your thinking. Books on physics, money, power, psychology, spirituality, and philosophy. The real stuff. But I get it. Most people don't have time to read 50 books per year. So I hand-selected my favorite nonfiction books and distilled each one of them into a course that you can take in 50 to 100 times faster than it would take you to read the entire book. Each course gives you the key insights, mental models, and frameworks that matter. We launched with 15 book courses, and we are building toward a library of 100 by the end of year 1. So if you are a seeker of truth, wisdom, and personal growth, then my book course is for you. To sign up, go to course.breedlove.io. Again, that's course.breedlove.io. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money. And be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.